The Shahed drone has become one of the most iconic weapons of the war in Ukraine, not because it's the most sophisticated, not because it's the most powerful weapon, but because it's particularly recognizable and it's being used to such devastating effect. These are Iranian-made one-way kamikaze attack drones, pretty simple munitions, originally developed and manufactured in Iran. Russia started buying them in the first autumn of the war, and it's subsequently come to an agreement with Tehran where it is manufacturing them under license on Russian soil. Why have they become so important? Well, primarily because they are cheap and effective, and both Iran and Russia can produce a lot of them and send a lot of them at Ukraine to overwhelm Ukraine's air defenses. So I have a range, a variation of guidance systems, inertial, with sort of inbuilt inherent guidance systems where the drone can just detect how far it's been traveling in a certain direction. So it sort of knows where it is against a pre-designated sort of stored mapping information. And it also has GPS and other systems to try and navigate based on satellite or other navigation systems. But fundamentally, it's relatively accurate. It has a very long range, some 2,500 kilometers, and it's cheap. So whilst if they fly past or through Ukraine's air defenses, Ukraine can shoot them down. They fly relatively slowly, about 100, just over 100 miles an hour. They're not particularly small. They're 3.5 meters by about 3.5 meters, delta wing shape. They were originally grey or white to disguise them against the daylight sky, but increasingly as they've been used in nighttime strikes, we've seen them change colour. Russia now painting its variation of them, its variant called the Geran 2 black, to make them harder for Ukraine's anti-aircraft teams to spot. Effective, again, because it has a long range. It can carry not an enormous payload, but a significant enough payload when it's delivered accurately. And most importantly of all, its main value to Russia is it's cheap and easy to produce. So whilst Russia has been running very low on its stockpiles of its most sophisticated weapons, it can combine those more advanced cruise missiles and ballistic missiles with these much more simple Shahed weapons in its nightly waves of attacks. And so increasingly what we've seen since these weapons were since the Shaheds were first used in that first autumn of the war in sort of September 2022, we increasingly see the Shaheds used in combination with other weapons. Sometimes they're used, it's a night of just Shahed strikes, but usually we see a combination of missiles on Shaheds used together, and that forces Ukraine into a difficult position in many occasions. Sometimes Ukraine will be forced to decide whether or not to expose its air defenses, because one of the tactics might be to send in the Shaheds to try and force Ukraine to reveal the location of its air defenses, to allow Russia to target those air defense batteries or to circumvent them. Now, there are many variations of the Shahed. The one that we talk about most often is the Shahed 136. That's the one I've been talking about today. There are smaller variants of it. There are specialist surveillance variants of it. And there may be new variations in Iran. We can only imagine that Iran is continuing to sort of develop this weapon. It's been used, or variations of it were first used, we think, against targets in Saudi Arabia when Iran attacked Saudi Arabia, but it's really come of age. It's really become the defining weapon, one of the defining weapons of Russia's bloodbath assault on Ukraine.